So I think there are several factors changing currently in the market. Obviously, one is that the demographic changes. We have less people in the field. We have less people actually want to work in field service. So we need to find means in order to optimize that and that we have more efficiency. So this is something which is really changing. It becomes also really clear that field service becomes more value-driven aspect of the whole, supply chain, if you will, of a company, or value chain of a company. So I think there's a strategic shift within the customer because people or companies realize that if we have great customer service, that gives us, customer centricity, the customer starting to love us, and I think through that they will achieve also higher revenues and better ratings. So many factors you need to consider in order to just field service. Field service in general is very broad, right? You have you have the optimization part, which is by alone super complex. And to give you a number, the amount of factors you need to calculate for optimization is almost near the atoms in the universe, right? Just for that part. So, but this is just the optimization piece. But then you have also the mobile part when it's to the customer. So there's so many things you need to consider. You need to consider the skill sets of the worker, the problem, the complexity of driving towards the customer in real-time traffic jams. Then you have multiple customers, you need to be there. So there's so many factors, and that's why it makes it complex. That's why a lot of companies investing into this market, trying to solve the problem. And also then you have the demographic factors, which just makes life not easier in the field service market because you don't have many people actually want to work there. As mentioned before, so we have within the strategic, within the C-level, right, it becomes such a key asset because you have a direct reach towards your customer. You have basically building a relationship, something which is normally very hard. You have all the different tools try to do that, but you have a human interaction with your customer, and this human interaction to create the best possible customer experience is something which creates customer bonding, if you will, right, and also customer relationship, and that's why this is becoming a strategic part from a C-level perspective, but not just that, because you have a lot of huge costs. So it's a cost driver and a revenue driver on both sides, and that obviously makes it relevant for C-level. Obviously, it depends a little bit on the size of the companies, but it basically applies to all the range of customers. You have the small customers who are still doing optimizations on a board, right? They have a small Gantt chart and they do it manually. So on that part, it's obviously something where they need to invest and need to drive that. On the other hand, you have also huge companies perceiving that aspect of field service in general just as an IT project or as a short-term thing. I mentioned before that C-level needs to understand this as a strategic point, and this you still see within, let's say, the operational part. You see it as a one-time project, and don't see it as a long-term strategic effort in order to make your company better and have better customer relationships. So I think we discussed already that field service as a general is a huge complex aspect, right? There's so many things you need to consider, and I think it's becoming really humanly impossible to do this manually or on a drawing board. So you need to have really software trying to solve these things for you to automate the problems, and you can only do this with great software. This is not done just, hey, I have an idea to build it. This is done with decades of experience to understand the market, to understand the problems, to build the different cases. And I think companies, they need to invest into that and to fall not behind within the market, because any company who's not driving the digital transformation or be the spearhead of it is going to have problems in the future. I think AI in general, right? We feel it's just a new thing. Like we see it like the LLMs, we see ChatGPT, Gemini, maybe somebody. So we saw also Claude, but these are relatively new things. But I always make the joke in Solvares, we actually do AI for the last 3 decades, right? So we have built heuristics and algorithms with the support of machine learning and machine support for, as I mentioned, 3 decades almost, right? So, and I think it's it's going to be a huge opportunity for the market, but it's still not clear how it's going to shape, because like how can we really make this use of the LLMs of the world, not just as maybe as a voice bot, but really how can we integrate into the already existing platforms and create extra value for the customer, because if there is no value, this thing blows up and there's nothing there. The companies who are going to be successful is first they're going to perceive field service as a strategic part within the company and the value chain. So any company who's going to, just by the nature of it, going to consider it as an afterthought will lose, right? And we see so much investments in the market that people also, new companies want to drive it, but also bigger companies want to be there, right? So it's a hugely interesting market, and there's going to be a lot of innovations. And if you don't think strategically about the field service market, you're going to fall behind, you will not be successful. He or she needs to perceive the field service as a strategic part, as I mentioned before, as a huge important part within the value chain, to push that also, to make the C-level aware and not just an operational efficiency project or process, because this is not what it is. It is also that, but it's not just that. So we need, I would really urge these persons to support field service becoming a hugely important part within the C-level discussions, and in order to get the recognition they deserve and not just be an operational excellence play.